At the Hugo Salas Socialist Commune in Venezuela, the acting president Delcy Rodriguez announced that funds from oil sales have been deposited in an effort to bolster the Venezuelan economy. Forest fires continue causing havoc in South America, with new blazes igniting in the southern regions of Chile and Argentina. In Palestine, Israel has begun demolishing buildings inside the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees headquarters in East Jerusalem, as the Zionist government continues to attack humanitarian groups that provide aid to Gaza. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Sophie Fernandez from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. At the Hugo Salas Socialist Commune in Venezuela, the acting president Delcy Rodriguez announced that funds from oil sales have been deposited in an effort to bolster the Venezuelan economy. Rodriguez explained that of the initial $500 million, $300 million had been deposited in the nation's coffers to cover workers' incomes. It is also worth remembering that on 16th of January, Delcy Rodriguez specified that in this new stage for Venezuela, the Program for Economic Recovery, Prosperity and Growth presented by President Nicolás Maduro in 2018 is being ratified, and this has enabled the Venezuelan economy to lead growth in Latin America.
We are going to share information with the country today. We must report that we have received funds from the sale of oil. From the first 500 million, we have received 300 million. These funds will be used to cover and finance the income of our workers, to protect their purchasing power. Venezuela will protect them from inflation and from the negative impact of fluctuations in the currency exchange market. These initial funds will be used and employed through the exchange market in Venezuela by the National Bank and the Central Bank of Venezuela, precisely to consolidate and stabilize the market and protect the income and purchasing power of our workers.
In Caracas, Venezuela, the National Assembly held a meeting of the Advisory Committee, during which the National Assembly President Jorge Rodriguez stated that 8 major codes will be implemented to simplify and modernize the legal system. Jorge Rodriguez ratified that during the 2026-2031 parliamentary term, the country's laws would be organized to prioritize those with a significant impact on social projects. He emphasized that the law reforms processes seeks adaptability to new times. To conclude, Jorge Rodriguez expressed that the most important thing is for Venezuelan families to understand that the purpose of this body of law is to ensure the safety of present and future generations.
We
have laws that are pre-constitutional and are still in force. We have codes that are not only pre-constitutional, but pre-Fourth Republic. Before the Fourth Republic, before the advent of the electric typewriter, the Commercial Code of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela is still in force, and hence the need to organize those laws that are necessary, because these are also laws that have lost their validity. There are laws that have lost their functionality. Therefore, we must be able to organize the laws that truly matter in the process of accompanying the work of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela into 8 major codes.
The President of Venezuela's National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, acknowledged the complexity of some electoral laws and assured that the legislature will seek to speed up these and other procedures.
I know that you have some concerns regarding the electoral code, but it is true that Venezuela's electoral laws, which are very advanced laws and very comprehensive, are sometimes also complex in their application, and at times they are also awkward.
en los elementos de participación política, que si un partido político, que entonces no sé cuántas firmas, que si no sé cuántas...
In terms of the elements of political participation, whether it's a party or then a signature or then the stamps, which establish elements of discretion. Well, let's look for a way in which the very composition of the electoral authority, even though it is constitutional, can attest to the fact that it is a somewhat awkward process.
Alessandro, que se ha hecho experto en comisiones de selección de autoridades electorales, puede dar fe de que es un proceso algo engorroso.
And we are obliged, as the acting President Rodriguez specified in her speech on January the 15th, to seek ways to speed up and make more streamlined all the Republic's procedures.
Hacer más ágiles todos los trámites de la República.
In an exclusive interview with our multi-channel news network TeleSUR, the Attorney General of Venezuela, Tarek William Saab, highlighted the resolve of the Venezuelan government and acting President Delcy Rodriguez in governing despite the military aggression of the United States against the country and the kidnapping of Constitutional President Nicolás Maduro Moros and First Lady Cilia Flores.
En primer lugar,
First and foremost, what must be highlighted is the firmness and absolute dignity of our people, the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, state institutions, the popular movement, social movements, and of course acting President Dr. Delcy Rodriguez to lead and direct in response to what has happened, an event I would describe as not only a direct violation of international law, but also it made it in practice a literal dead letter after having seen the sequence of events that took place from 2023 in Gaza before the complicit eyes of the great powers of the earth, who did absolutely nothing to prevent a massacre, an ethnic cleansing that could easily have killed and made disappear babies, pregnant women, newborn children, girls, and especially women and children, in order to seek procreation in that beautiful biblical place of Palestine known as Gaza.
bíblico, profético de Palestina como es Gaza.
Attorney General Tarek William Saab demanded the unconditional release of President Nicolás Maduro and First Lady Cilia Flores.
Cuando tú te pones a ver,
When you look at it, there were between 100 and 120 innocent Venezuelan citizens, including elderly women and children sleeping at that hour, who were murdered, as well as members of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces and the security force from an agreement between Cuba and Venezuela. There were also Cuban officers who were heroically killed in combat. It was not, as they have tried to portray it in their narrative, an agreement or a surrender. How could there be an agreement and a treaty with 120 civilians and military personnel murdered, with people shot down on the floor? We have 5 national prosecutors investigating these events because the world needs to know about them and needs to wake up. And I am going there as a conclusion to this first part of your program, in which all of this that I mentioned to you concludes in a single unequivocal demand: the unconditional freedom of President Nicolás Maduro and the Congresswoman and First Lady Cilia Flores. Let us not forget that Dr. Cilia Flores is an elect Congresswoman and also has immunity. And all of that was violated. It was destroyed. Look, those who support them, they believe that nothing to them. They believe that they are protected, that they are already far away from any action. Look, every action has a reaction. Negative karma exists. You reap what you sow.
And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. Authorities in Chile report that the forest fire emergency has spread to the Araucanía region, while one person has been detained and is under investigation for his alleged responsibility in the blazes. Precisely, the Chilean government confirmed on Monday that 28 forest fires are still being fought in the regions of La Araucanía, Ñuble and Biobío, with the death toll remaining at 20. Authorities also reported the arrest of a man in the town of Penco as the alleged perpetrator of one of these fires. In this regard, the executive announced that it will file charges against those involved and condemn an attack on a fire truck in the municipality of Angol, which Interior Minister Álvaro Elizalde described as unacceptable, demanding security guarantees for the firefighters battling the emergency. Meanwhile, in the Argentinian Patagonia, despite Chubut Governor Ignacio Torres' statements that the fire was 100% contained, the blaze that started in El Hoyo on January 5th reignited in 3 large areas. The fire is being fueled by warm winds, high temperatures, and a 2-year drought affecting the Patagonian mountain range. Epuyén is the town that was hit the hardest, where at least 40 homes burned down and 2 entire neighborhoods were evacuated. On Monday, 2 large fires reignited, one near Pirque and Epuyén hills on the lake of the same name, and another on the northwest. In this context, Governor Ignacio Torres has been questioned for attempting to stop donations to volunteer brigades and social organizations that provide logistical support and assist victims through the Buenos Aires media. Moving now to Peru, workers at the state-owned company Petroperú organized a march in the capital Lima to protest the privatization of the company. The protesters denounced that the Peruvian government intends to divide the company's assets, which would put the country's energy sovereignty at serious risk. In this regard, the unions warned that a possible adjustment plan could mean the layoff of almost 1,500 workers. With the march, Petroperú employees seek to pressure the executive and demand the establishment of a dialogue table, whose ultimate goal is to guarantee the public future of the oil company. Moving now to the United States, President Donald Trump's administration asked a federal judge to dismiss the state of Minnesota's request to stop the government's anti-immigration offensive. The U.S. Justice Department asked the federal judge to allow the deployment of ICE agents in the state after the increase of demonstrations against President Trump's policies. On the other hand, the administration said it will appeal the ruling of another federal judge, which restrained the federal agents' operations in the context of the anti-government protests in the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. The executive's moves comes after the state of Minnesota and Illinois filed a demand against what they call ICE's unconstitutional acts of violence and repression. And protests against ICE immigration enforcement operations continue for the 3rd consecutive week in the United States. The main focus of criticism is President Donald Trump's decision to deploy immigration and customs enforcement agents in several states across the country. Social movements have denounced that the escalation of raids against immigrants without legal status has led to violent incidents and have asserted that the White House's strategy has cost human lives and fosters a climate of permanent confrontation. In response to this, protesters in New York asserted that the U.S. president's rhetoric has divided society and that many of his election promises, which brought him back to power, remain unfulfilled after a year in office. Meanwhile, in the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C., protests were also reported in opposition to President Donald Trump's anti-immigration policies. Citizens asserted that these policies have not only fragmented the country socially, but have also created a climate of violence and persecution with deadly consequences for the migrant population. In response, protesters reiterated that the forces sent by the Donald Trump administration have harassed and arbitrarily detained innocent people. Also in Minnesota, clashes between protesters and federal immigration agents continue as the Justice Department announced its plan to press charges against the protesters. At the same time, the agency confirmed that it will not investigate the circumstances of the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent. And speaking of protests against Donald Trump's administration, red baseball caps with the slogan "Make America Go Away" are increasingly showing in Greenland and Denmark's demonstrations against U.S. President Donald Trump's attempts to interfere with the island's national sovereignty. Designated to parody the trademark headwork of the Make America Great Again political movement, the caps are becoming a symbol of Danish and Greenlandic defiance against Trump's threat to seize the frozen territory. The mug hats were created by a Copenhagen vintage clothing store last year, but began popping up everywhere after the Trump administration's recent escalating rhetoric over Greenland. Public opinion on Greenland insists that the future of the island should be decided only by its citizens and not by a foreign power. We have a second short break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There, you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Find a short break, but we'll be right back with more from the South. Don't go away. Welcome back. Israel has begun demolishing buildings inside the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees headquarters in East Jerusalem, as the Zionist government continues to attack humanitarian groups that provide aid to Gaza. In a statement on Tuesday, the organization said that Israeli forces had confiscated staff devices and forced them out of their headquarters in the Sheikh Hahra neighborhood, constituting an unprecedented attack against the UNRWA and its premises. It also constituted a serious violation of international law and the United Nations privileges and immunities. For its part, the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah denounced the demolitions, calling them a deliberate escalation against the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees.
As he has repeatedly and unequivocally stated.
On Tuesday, the Syrian Ministry of Defense announced a 4-day ceasefire with the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, in the northeast of the country. This announcement followed a report from the de facto government of an understanding with the Syrian Democratic Forces for a truce that came into effect at 8 p.m. local time. The Syrian army stated they also asked the Kurdish forces to provide the name of a candidate for the role of assistant to the defense minister in Damascus, as part of the efforts to integrate the SDF into the de facto Syrian state. For their part, the Kurdish forces have pledged to respect the truce, saying that it will not initiate military action as long as its forces are not attacked. Moving now to Spain, the government reported that the death toll in the Ademuz rail accident had risen to 42. Local authorities informed that another body was found in one of the Iria train carriages, while out of the 120 people injured, 37 are still hospitalized. They also informed that the cause of the crash remains unknown, though investigators found a broken joint on the rails, which likely created a gap. On this part, Spain's chief high-speed train engineer Álvaro Aznar stated that the early signs have pointed to a mechanical failure. In this context, officials have ruled out sabotage and human error due to both trains were traveling under the speed limits for that section, and also said that death toll could still climb as recovery works continue. Also in Spain, at least one person died and another 37 were injured in another train accident in Catalonia, where a retaining wall fell on a train track. Among those wounded, 5 are in serious condition, 6 in less serious condition, and 26 with minor injuries. The incident occurred on the R4 train line in the province of Barcelona, where the train was unable to avoid colliding with the structure that had collapsed into the tracks after heavy rain hit the area. Immediately after the accident, firefighters were mobilized to the area to assist passengers at the scene before they were evaluated for possible transfers to health centers. Meanwhile, in Poland, a train derailment was also reported, and authorities are investigating the causes of the accident. A passenger train derailed without injuring any of the 20 people on board, thanks to the fast response of the emergency teams. In response to the situation, the Polish State Railway Company confirmed the incident and activated safety protocols. Authorities report that specialized equipment is already on site to retrack the train and announce an investigation to determine the causes of the accident. And moving on to New Zealand, on Wednesday, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon announced that the country's parliamentary election will be held on November 7th. Luxon said that setting the date early provides New Zealanders with certainty and enables voters to determine which party can best provide stable leadership in an unstable world. He highlighted his national-led government's record on the economy, public safety, education and infrastructure. The current coalition, led by National and including New Zealand First and ACT, has been in power since the 2023 election.
Lead up to the November 7 election, Kiwis will have to weigh up who is best placed.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. But before we say goodbye, we share the upcoming song in homage to late Colombian activist Piedad Córdoba. For Telesur English, I'm Sophie Fernandez. Thank you for watching.
Para luchar por la justicia, para poder alcanzar la paz, para vivir la vida digna, hace falta humanidad, para encontrar el camino a la libertad, para seguir empuñando la espada de la dignidad y la libertad. Pueblo hermano, la nueva aurora resplandece en tu rostro de sonrisa y girasoles. Tu eterna convicción de una Colombia de humana humanidad. Nuestra victoria también se llama piedad.